right. I don't know what happened. Something happened. Maybe I was giving out too good information and people cut my feed. So, anyways, let's start that over. We were like 15 minutes into it, but probably gonna start that one over. I don't know what happened. Internet just dropped, so we're pretty much just gonna start over. So I know people are here already. It's already like 7:50. So like I said, this is the five simple steps to winning a tournament or preparing for a tournament. I was on number one before when everything kind of went south. So with hopefully everybody's gonna jump back in or catch us later, but the feed got cut. I don't know why. And number one of the five steps that I was telling everybody before was make a list. Make a list of all the things you like to do. And every single item, make sure it's highly detailed. So for every technique, like I was telling people before, say the frog is what I really like throwing in the beginning, and I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, John, thanks for coming back on or coming on, I guess. Uh, but yeah, when you're before you even go out, you need to make a list of all the things you feel you're good at, whether you're good at spinner baits or chatter baits or anything else. Make a list of what you're good at, and then for every technique, list it out to the T. Like which rod do you like to throw it on? What kind of line you like to throw it on? All that stuff. Gear ratios, how fast you usually spin the reel handle, everything like that. And I feel like the more detail you make those things, the more likely you're gonna get real good at it. And then later on, you might even branch it off into uh, two totally separate techniques, but it might still be like just one. Because I say that because, like in my list of things, so if I was gonna make a list of things I like to do, regardless of where I'm going fishing, right? Let's just because today we're focusing this on bass. My list of things I like to do, number one at the very top of the list is hollow belly frogs. And then it probably goes square bills on laydowns. And then it probably goes deep diving crankbaits. And then it goes chatterbaits. And then it goes, the list continues. But when I was new, I really knew frogs because that's what I started catching bass on, like in the ponds, things like that. So it's all frogs. And I threw the first frogs we started throwing. We threw them on the neighborhood pond, and we throw them on like 10-pound fluorocarbon, and we would throw them on like a jerk bait rod, like a 6 foot. No, the very first rod I had was like a 6 foot 10 medium action, and you can see all these bass blow up on it. You set the hook as hard as you can. You could double, triple tap them, and it's still gonna jump off, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so that was pretty crazy like that, and it got to the point where you gotta kind of get you kind of get fed up with it too. So you start developing that skill or honing that skill. So we started throwing it on braid, started throwing it on a heavy action rod, and that was pretty good for the first year or two, and then it started branching off from there. So that's hence all them rods over there. So you started doing like, do I need to cast this frog into tight spaces or little windows between bushes? Or do I just bomb it way out there on that flat and hopefully one just blows up on it? So you start doing that and you start thinking about two different setups. So that's why we have a square bill setup and we have a deep diamond crankbait setup. That's why we have a chatterbait rod and reel setup for fluorocarbon, and we have a chatterbait rod on braid. We also have two topwater rigs too. We have a topwater rig for poppers and smaller walking baits, like your head and spook styles, and then we got a bigger one for pencil poppers, things like that. So the techniques kind of keep start going and going and going, but for the most part, you have to, you just have to figure out what you're good with. Something that you feel you're better than other people. You got to be better than other people at. So like if I made a list today, say my first year fishing for bass, right? If I made a list that year, it would be just three. maybe possibly 4. But right now, 5 years later, I feel that I am pretty good. I could probably list off 10 things that I could probably win a tournament with. So a couple things off the top of my head right now is those the ones I just listed. And if it's a brush hog bite, if it's a deep brush pile bite, I'm good with. If it's a spoon bite, definitely gonna win that tournament because nobody's throwing that. And if it's like a small swim bait bite, if it's a jig bite, I might win that too. I'm getting more and more comfortable with the jig. Do you feel the lack of rain this year has made it slower fishing? No, I haven't. Fishing's been fishing's been as good as it's ever been. You just don't know where the fish are at. Pretty much, that's the problem. And of course, the whole COVID thing, a lot more people on the lakes now, so there's a little bit more pressure. But you just got to be ahead of the curve. So basically, number one is also you want to be ahead of the curve. You have to trust the techniques that you feel are that you're better than the rest of the pack. Right. So that's definitely on your list of things to list. All right. So that's number one, stuff that you feel you're confident with. Number two, so you got your list of items you like, right? Don't get me wrong, you definitely pack that, or you hope those tournaments will fall into one of those categories that you feel you're really good with, okay? And you might not even have to practice for a tournament, okay? And you just win. You show up and just smoke them, basically. But after you get your list of things you want to do, this applies to bass fishing. This applies to all types of fishing, right? Just focus on what you're good with. Okay, this is ideally how your day is supposed to go. To don't get me wrong, there's a lot of backup plans that you need to put into place too. But if things go according to plan, which is what we wanted to do, it will fall into these categories. So in the world of kayaks, uh, kayak tournaments, right? I go out rigged with 8 rods. Always 8 rods. Sometimes 9, but I feel like if you get to 10, you're confused. Okay, so always 9, always 8. I just bring 8 just because sometimes I feel like a tournament when I go out, I already know what I'm gonna throw. Right, I only need like 2 or 3 rods, but I still bring 8 just in case. Just in case. Uh, let's see. When do you practice the stuff you're not good with, or when you're good enough with one technique? Okay, that's a good question. So me and my brother, we fight with this subject all the time. Tournament days, never throw anything that you've never experimented with before. If you've had one good trip with it, maybe. If you've never had a good trip with it, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. That's what fun fishing days are for. Okay, so tournament days, you have to go out with your best knives, guns, weapons. Right? You don't because everybody else will. Okay, so you don't come to a tournament expecting to beat me on a frog if you've never thrown the frog before. I'm not saying you're not gonna get lucky. I'm just saying if it's a frog bite, I might catch 20 fish to your 5. And for the odds of me catching 5 bigger ones than your 5 is a lot better in my favor. Okay. I practice drop shotting on lakes that are easy to get bit because it's a weakness of mine. Any other ideas? The drop shot is good, but like our group of friends, we always say the drop shot catches drop shot fish. So the drop shot, I feel like it's a good limit catcher, but you can't win a tournament on it. Okay, there are cases, in California where it's super clear and you should throw a drop shot, but I feel like I feel like it's not a strong pattern. If you're gonna throw a drop shot, I would suggest you throw a finesse jig. I kind of feel like that, or you throw a Magnum Nico rig, or you throw something else too. But don't get me wrong, I've placed pretty high throwing like if it's the conditions are dictating, we'll get to that later. If the conditions are dictating you throw a drop shot, you throw a drop shot. But it's not going to be your first thing, okay? It's going to be later on. We'll get to that in a bit. So, so you're practicing, not practicing. No, you can even say practice too. You can practice and you can refine your things that you need or want to do. But if later it might be something different. Like you have your list of 6 things you're really good at. But don't get me wrong, like drop shot is not one of my six. Even though I feel like I'm really good with it, it's like close to the bottom of six, right? So I won't even think about a drop shot during practice. I won't do it. Like I'll go out, I will throw everything else but the drop shot. It's one of those things too. When I practice, I don't throw. I hardly throw any finesse baits. I hardly throw any finesse baits. I'm trying to figure out just where they're at. Okay, I need to figure out, are they on points? Are they on the secondary points? Are they in the cuts? Are they related to big rocks, small rocks, pebble rocks, things like that? I need to figure that out. So I need to, especially in the past couple of years, we don't practice much anymore. So if we get a day of practice, we have to make the most out of it. And I'm not there on a 1 day, 4 or 5 hour kind of practice where I'm gonna fish everything. I'm just gonna go fast, like fast search bait in the crankbait. If you could do it with top water, do it with top water. It's even faster. Gives you an idea of where the populations of fish are, because you want to eliminate dead water. I think everybody knows how to throw a shaking head. So if you can eliminate 80% of the water during tournament day, you could throw a shaky head. Okay, but your shaky head's gonna go into the area that you got bit, right? So think about that. Everybody can throw a shaky head, but everybody can't comb 2 miles on a shaky head. But if I only give you like 20 yards of what you've already found during practice to be a decent area, throw a shaky head, you'll get bit, right? Uh, yeah. So when we're finding fish, a lot of times, you're not actually fishing. You're just looking, like with your eyes, with your electronics. If you have good electronics, if you don't use your eyes, a lot of times the winning areas are areas you roll up into and it looks fishy. What I mean by that is you roll up into an area and you can see bluegills around, you can see shad around, you can see bass chasing fish, stuff like that, or you can see it just looks really good, right? And that is a gut feeling you have to develop as you go, right? So when you're looking for fish, you want a fast moving bait, and maybe a slow one. Like I said, maybe a shaky head, but you can't throw a shaky head long. Like you could comb through an area really really fast and get to a point, and you using your fast lure through it, it doesn't do anything. All right, go ahead, throw the shaky head twice, and that's it. You got two good casts on it, then you gotta go, because you're searching for spots. Okay, that's what it is. All right, so once you get your favorite list of techniques down, like I said, it doesn't matter what time of year, right? So you could throw a hollow belly frog, you put a spinner bait in there, you could put a giant topwater bait, you could put a glide bait if you're confident with that stuff. You make your list. This is how I would like to win the tournament, right? Make your list. And then you kind of have to narrow that list, right? So when are you going fishing? Seasonal pattern starts to kick in. Okay? Seasonal pattern. You go in the wintertime, you go in the springtime, you go in the summertime, you go in the fall time. All right? Seasonal pattern. So when you look at that, then you take your list of 10 items you love to do, and you might narrow it down. It might be down to like two things now. Okay? And that's true. Because look, I love throwing the hollow belly frog, but if I throw that during the wintertime, I'm not winning that tournament. Okay? I can almost guarantee you're not going to win the tournament on a hollow belly frog. You're probably not going to win it on a square bill also. The deep diving crankbait still has a shot, okay? The little small swim bait might have a shot. The jackhammer chatterbait might have a shot at it. But, if you're fishing in the wintertime, so now, like I was telling you guys, I'm fishing 8 rods, right? So now I only have 3 things that I really like to do. But I have 8 rods. So now to fill up the other 5, right? The other 5 might be your weaknesses. Drop shot, like John was saying. Drop shot's really good in the wintertime. I didn't mention a jig, but throw the jig up in there. So now you're back up to 5 rods, right? And then you might want to throw a spoon, like one of those lap spoons. I'm getting better at it. It's starting to become a confidence bait. Throw a spoon, and also throw something else, something more wintry, like a crappie jig. Okay, you might have to drop a crappie jig 25 foot, get some fish to bite. It's pretty crazy, but people actually do it. All right, so there you go. There's like 8 possible rods and reel combinations that you have to come up with and fish with. Okay, so that's the one. That's number 2. So seasonal pattern is going to dictate what you want to do. So that's wintertime fishing, which is right now. If it's summertime fishing, it'll be kind of the same, but you'll switch a couple things in and out. Once again, maybe your blade bait gets to sit on the bench while that big 10-inch worm takes its spot. Okay, big 10-inch worm. Once again, the summertime there's a lot of grass, so maybe that drop shot, put that away, put my frog in the lineup. So you have to move things in and out like that. So all your favorite things that you like to do, you might only get to do them one tournament out of the year. That's the craziest part, and that's something that me and Hybrid Killer talks about all the time. It's like, man, I love throwing hollow belly frogs, but that hollow belly frog only is at its best. I feel like it's at its best March, April, and June, and that's it. Once you get beyond that, I feel like it's not at its best. So you still take it, but now like your starting lineup, it's not the frog's not number one. It might be number 4 in your lineup. Uh, the crankbait is really good too, but it gets to a point where the crankbait, like the way I fish a crankbait is, one, I burn it, straight burn, or 2, I fish it around stumps and laydowns, right? Or I rip it out of grass. Sometimes a crankbait, I can't, to me, I don't fish a crankbait slow. So a lot of times the crankbait kind of hurts me, okay? Whereas if I'm throwing, say, a jerkbait, I'm still throwing it fast, but just by the nature of how you work the jerkbait versus the jerkbait is going to be 4 times slower, even though I'm fishing the jerkbait super fast compared to the traditional guy fishing the jerkbait, right? But in terms of top waters, I really like the top water in the fall. I feel like the top water in the fall is probably the funnest time to throw it. It's just that during the spawn, you get the biggest bites, the big females on beds. That's when you want to throw the hollow belly frog. Those 6, 7, 8, 9 pounders. I'm telling you guys, a frog, 2 crazy, crazy hooks modified, and then 65 or 80 pound braid, crazy 7 or 7.5 foot heavy, extra heavy rod, 8 gear ratio with the drag locked down. You're not even like, even if it's a 8, 9 pounder, you're not fighting the fish. You're just cranking them out, cranking them in. It's really, 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 really addictive. Okay, so yeah, definitely that. But like I said, it's seasonal pattern. So in the fall, I like to fish things really, really fast. I feel like in the fall, everything is scattered. They're everywhere. So speed kills that time of year. Speed definitely kills in the fall. So swim baits, underspins work real fast. The blade baits, the Cordell Gay blades, and all those blades, they work real well. All the little swim baits, 2.8 Kitex, 3 Kitex, they work really, really well. And once again, if you have grass or if you have just random bank too with big rocks, the frog starts to play again. But that was number 2. So seasonal pattern should, it's in a way it forces your hands, right? So you have your favorite items you need, and then the seasonal pattern needs to modify that list. But if you have a fixed idea of how many rods you need to bring, then you fill in the gap with seasonal baits that should work. Even if you have limited exposure to it, you should still fill it in, right? So, it's better sometimes. Well, limited exposure is okay. If you have no exposure to it, it's better not to pack it, right? Because you don't want to try to figure things out on game day, okay? And then number 3, so seasonal patterns modify your lineup, right? So number 3 is, now we're gonna, because seasonal patterns apply to all lakes, right? Now we're actually gonna look at the lake. You look at the lake and you say, or river for that matter, and you say, what in this body of water is an attractor to fish. Okay, so in the lake it might be pond willows, it might be brush piles, it might be rocky points, it might be, go ahead, keep going. There's a lot. There might be bridges, there might be bridge pilings, there might be uh, a dam, a bunch of riprap, stuff like that. You need to physically look at the lake and make a list, right? And once again, of all those things you see on the map, which ones do you like to fish? And can your favorite items match with the things that are there, right? If they match, that's a good spot to go check out. That's a good spot to go check out. So with that being said, a lot of people, if they want to learn how to break down a lake, and that's how I'm breaking the lakes down. I don't go into just community holes because I don't know if that community hole sets up for me. So when I go through my list of things I like to do, and then look at a map, look at seasonal patterns, look at my strengths and weaknesses, it might be a spot that to me might be a dream spot, but to somebody else, it's a dead spot. It's why would you ever go there? And I tell them, well, if I go up there and it's a barren bank, there's nothing there, and I throw an underspin on it, and I catch one or two during practice, they're probably gonna start there because ain't nobody gonna be on it. So a lot of times when we go out of state to go fish tournaments, I could relate this back to the Lake Fork tournament that I went twice. So the first time I went to Lake Fork, this was national. This is a national event. So first time I went there, no practice, went in, looked at a bunch of maps, and just picked a spot and went in. The second year I went back, I was like, let's test this theory. I'm gonna get there on Wednesday, and the tournament's not till Saturday, so I'm gonna practice 3 full days. So I looked at the lake, I looked at everything, I practiced 3 full days, and it turns out the spot I was fishing the year before is still the best spot for me. It's because I was moving around. There's a lot of competition, and on Lake Fork, there's so much pressure on those fish that it got to a point where like they wouldn't even bite a traditional hollow belly frog. They would snap at these rivets, but they wouldn't swallow them. All these weird things was happening. That was pulling the lake and all this other stuff. Spinner baits were hitting. They weren't touching anything until I got to this one lily pad patch, and there were these like guppies. They're about that size. They're about that size, right? Say they're like 2 inches long, right? And I see a bass come up and swirl on it, and it's like a 14-inch bass. And on this tournament, the bass need to be 14. So I bring everything with me because it's just practice day. So I bring I think it must have been like 15 rods, right? And I had all most of my gear I had all me too because this is second day, right? So I brought all my frogs, every frog I've ever owned. I must have had 30 different frogs, right? So I go out there and I'm just like looking at all my frogs and I'm just thinking, man, all these frogs are too big. I need a downsize. Did I even bring my little frogs? So I started searching through my whole thing, and I find them. At one time, Hybrid had bought me the Booyah Pad Crashers, but the junior size, right? So I'm throwing this big Spro like bronze eye, and I wouldn't even get them to reveal themselves. Okay, so then I throw out this little frog, and I two cast it, I get a blow. And I don't, again, it's practice, so you don't set the hook. You just hold the fish, hold its weight, and I could tell it's not big. It's like a 15 and a half, right? About a 15 and a half inch fish. And then I thought to myself, the year before, the guys that were making it into the top 10, most of them, with the exception of the top 5, most of them from 5th to 10th place, they're catching 15 inches. Okay, so keep that back at it. So waypoint in the lily pads, middle lily pad field, put a waypoint. So I got my little waypoint. I'm like, you know what? Let me circle back. So I circle back, and I go, okay, I'm gonna start throwing this frog. Right, I'm gonna throw it, just basically bombing it out everywhere, and I get 3 more blowups. Okay, I didn't set the hook, so I'm thinking, all right, I think we got something. Waypoint number 2, waypoint number 3, waypoint number 4, and then I just kind of kept track on how deep that that water was in the lily pad field. So the lily pad field went from like 0 water level out to about 5.5 foot, and I realized I was sitting about that 2.5 to 3.5 foot in the lily pads. And if I didn't take mental note of that, I think I would have completely blew the tournament. But I went back and I was just like, all right, you no matter what, if you're in that 5 foot zone, they're not going to be there. If the 1 foot zone is too shallow, so you got to be in the 2 and 3. 2 and 3 in that lily pad field was in the middle of nowhere. Um, yeah, I had a couple other kayak guys around me too, and one guy did all right. He caught one good one, like a 20 inch, and then he couldn't catch any, so he left. But I was the only guy in that lily pad field, and I was just like, just stick with it. Every hour you're gonna get a bite. Every hour you're gonna get a bite. Every hour you're gonna get a bite. And what do you know? Every hour I got a bite, and ended up finishing in ninth place out of like 120 of the, I would say, the best anglers in the South at the time. Right, so you have to look at the lake. You have to see what's available, and then you have to see if what's available along with the seasonal pattern lines up with what you like to do. So now you got three strong things going for you. So going into practice, you need to go check those areas, right? Because if those areas are good, you're done. Bring it on the tournament, right? Let's go. That's number 3. Look at what's available and look at what attracts fish. So, and that's a major thing. Let me break down Broken Bow from last October. Broken Bow from last October was kind of more of like a roll up and just fish. We didn't really take any time off. We kind of got on the water and I just threw a buzzbait. I was like, man, it's like October. They should be aggressive. I just learned the buzzbait like last year in the spring. I just learned it. Just got comfortable with it. Just got comfortable throwing different sizes of buzzbaits. Just got comfortable with the gear ratios I need to be doing, things like that. So I go into Broken Bow and I'm thinking top water. I'm thinking top water, right? So it was raining and all this other stuff, and I'm going in. I'm like, all right, we just gotta find them. They should still be there the next day, even if the sun is up in its bluebird days. So the weather conditions, that's number 4, right? Number 4 is weather conditions. So after you find all the stuff you like to do, you find the fish, the weather is bound to change. It's the only thing that's guaranteed in tournament fishing. You can practice, do great, but on game day, it's 180 of what you practice, right? But you still got to believe that fish did not move a mile. That fish is still around there. That group of fish you found during practice is still around there, say within 100 yards. Well, 50 yards left and right. Okay? They're still around there. Okay? So your confidence is, okay, they're still there. They might be on, like, so if you caught them on a point, they might be on the left or the right side of the point, but that's about it. You need to go back and try to catch them. So if you caught them on a jig and it's bluebird days, in tournament day it is blowing 15 possible thunderstorms, you need to put that jig down. I think the jig gets lost due to the environment, okay? So you need to throw a lure that's just slightly louder than the environment you're in. So the jig is great on a bluebird day because there's nothing happening. Your jig crawling on the bottom, the fish can easily pick it up because there's nothing going on. Okay, so flip that 180, a jig in 20-mile-per-hour winds, overcast, and lightning bolts dropping. The jig is not going to be my favorite thing to throw. Okay, let's just say that right off the bat. You should throw a chatterbait. You should throw something that moves real fast, top water, or a swim bait. Swim bait might be a good one too, just because it can cover all layers of the water column. But I really like a chatterbait. I really like chatterbait, especially if the lightning bolts are dropping. Chatterbait's really good. So like I said, weather conditions have to dictate a lot of different things. Okay, so another good example is you practice for 2-3 days during the rain, but the water clarity is really good. but you know the mud is rolling in, right? What do you do on game day? Okay, so this is a gut feeling type thing again. Majority of the clear water fish are gonna leave. Okay, so if you know mud is coming in, you need to leave that area too. The fish, I feel like, are leaving. If they don't leave, I feel like they shut down. They won't bite. So you go find clean water. If you have the choice between clean and dirty water, and it's not like the dirty water's been there for a long time. If dirty water's been there for at least 3 days, then you're okay. Go flip bushes, square bills, spinnerbaits, straight. But if it's day one or day two, and this is normally a clear water lake, I feel like those fish leave. They leave. They go somewhere else until they can't go, and then they have to stick around, and then they'll pin themselves to objects, right? But usually, like a great example is smallmouth. If you're chasing smallmouth and mud rolls in, they're not there. I can almost guarantee you they're not going to be there. They're somewhere else. They are always somewhere else. Largemouth might stick around. Kentucky's, I feel like Kentucky/spotted bass, I feel like they leave too. Okay, so that's a gut feeling type thing, and it kind of comes with a little bit of experience too. So weather, water clarity, and this is one like I feel like it don't really only applies to the kayak guys. Is your range capability. Now, that is something that you have to gauge for yourself. Uh, for me, if you look at the weather and the weather is bluebird days, less than 5 miles per hour, my range from a boat ramp to fish a tournament is 3 miles. Like I could go 3 miles in the morning. I could launch 3 miles. And 3 miles, I'm a fairly slower guy, so it might take me almost an hour to get to where I need to go, right? Because I have to paddle. There's no power here. It might take me an hour. So at least 30 minutes early and 30 minutes into the tournament, I didn't even get to my favorite spot yet. But I know if I can get there, high confidence area, I'm going, right? I know I can make it 3 miles there, fish that general area at 3 miles back, right? That's maximum range. If it's windy and raining and lightning bolts will drop in and they did not cancel the tournament, my range is like a half a mile. I'm not going more than a mile. Absolutely not. Like you might have to change your approach. Like if it's 3 miles, that might include crossing the lake or crossing the lake and going up a creek. But if you can't do that, then you need to stay within the bounds of what you're comfortable with. And once again, it's really what you're comfortable with. I've won a lot of tournaments within a quarter mile of the boat ramp. I've done real well actually a lot of times, and I've also done a lot of damage going really really far. Um, so it's all in the gut feeling again. It's like it's what are you willing to risk it for the biscuit, or you're one of those guys that's like, what, I'll take whatever, within a mile, I'll take whatever that gives me, and I'll just try to do that. Let's see. Your BFG's 275s go on. Do you like them? Maybe update video. He's talking about my Tacoma, my wheels. My 275s are still not on yet. I'm still wearing out my 285s for Adam. The reason why I'm downsizing my tires is just because I'm towing a lot now, and the tires on the truck are too big. You don't get the torque to really tow very well, especially on the highway. So I'm downsizing a little bit. I think they'll be just fine. Chimney Rock drained its lake and threw tons and tons of artificial brush piles in there. Yeah, I saw that. I was out there, John. I was out there when they were playing with the brush piles. I got a bunch of videos on that too. So watch out because I have a lot more knowledge this time of year on pumpback. Uh, yeah, so I basically walked half the lake. Okay. All right, so that was kind of number 4, weather conditions. So weather conditions need to modify your lures that you have confidence with. So, like for example, say you're throwing a crankbait, a square bill, right? And it's just nasty conditions, right? Square bill is excellent. But if you get there and it's bluebird days, you might think about switching to a flat side. I'm just saying, flat side crankbait. So give you the 2 that I pack, right? Always pack a Lucky Craft 1.5. Always. regardless of what time of year. Lucky Craft 1.5 and the Spro Little John. Those are the two staples when it comes to those small square bills. Okay, staples. You can modify from there on out, but for me, those two. I pack them in like a bluegill color, and I pack them in that basic just white with some type of a brown top, brown or black top, something that's just different, right? Those are two color patterns that I really believe in. So bluegill pattern is basically wood, cranking rocks, wood pattern, or it's bluegill pattern. But if the water's a little dingy, then I go to the white. I should have a chartreuse black bag, but if it's that muddy, then I usually don't crank anymore. If it's that muddy, then I usually throw like I start flipping uh, Texas rigs. But see, that's the thing. I'm not good at the whole Texas rig thing. I'll be here in a minute. But I've won tournaments with it, okay? Because like I said, it's my list of 8 things. Texas rig is like number 7, okay, of things I don't like to do. But since I get to the lake, it's dirty water. I'll throw the chatterbait first. I'll throw the frog first. I'll throw all this other stuff first just to make sure it's not working. But once it comes down to my list, okay, you got bit flipping, then I'm just like, all right, you need to program in your head. You need to lock this in your hand for 8 hours. All you just got to do is just going through the motions, basically, and try to land that bait as best you can. And the first 30 minutes, I'm all over the place, right? I'm talking like, I'm throwing baits foot behind, foot in front, foot to the left, to the right. I'm just sloppy, straight up sloppy. The kayak control is not good. It's drifting the wrong direction. My flip isn't far enough or too far, or everything. It's not right. But 30 minutes in, I feel like I perfected. The 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 bait goes in right, pull it out right. The kayak drifts like because we're in a kayak, so a lot of times there's a little bit of wind. You can control the kayak's drift as you're flipping, you know. And then if that doesn't work, back up, another pass, flip again, or power pole and actually flip it really, really, really good. So I do a lot of that. Okay, so grass lakes notorious for that. So I hate flipping, but I love punching. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why. Right? So punching in like coontail that's matted, ounce and a quarter with a skirt and with a missile based D bottom on the back. I could pretty much do that all day. I love doing that stuff. I don't know why I can't do the basic like flipping. I just don't have enough patience or something. But yeah. So weather conditions really dictate what I would do, what I need to do, and things like that. Bait selection is like I said, you have a category of baits, and when you get there, depending on the weather condition, it goes up or down a little bit. Okay, but at the same time, you need to start on one end and go to the other end, right? So you pack 8 rods. When you first get to your first spot, well, the first couple of hours, you might actually go through all 8 of your lineup, right? Because you actually don't know what they're doing just yet. So you might throw a chatterbait. You actually might throw a frog first. You might throw a chatterbait after that. You might throw a square bill. You might throw a swim bait. You might throw a spinner bait after that. You might downsize everything, and then you go to a small swim bait. You might throw a fluke in there, and then you go your finesse stuff. So you got your Neds, your drop shots, you got your shaking heads, right? So you guys should go through all that. But my recommendation is you always want to start with the power techniques and then make your way through, right? So, like I just said, frog all the way to Ned ring, right? Start like that. I would say the first hour and a half, 2 hours, until you get a certain bite or until you start feeling like there's a lot of angling pressure, then you don't start with the frog anymore. Like you start with maybe something that's like mid tier, and then it goes towards finesse. But you always want to be like at the highest power level that you can get away with because I feel like that allows you to cover a lot of water or move and come back. But there's moments where you get to a certain time, a certain area where like You're catching them off finesse. That's the only thing you got, and you will have to run finesse the whole entire day. I've done that a couple times, a couple major tournaments too. This is maybe four, no, about 3 years ago. We when we fished American Horse Lake. I started off with a frog. I got bit twice, missed both short strikes, threw a big worm. I got bit one time in a brush pile. I set the hook and broke it off. And then as I was drifting across the lake, right? This is the truth. Drifting across the lake, I had my little fish finder on the side. As I'm retying this big worm, um, I happen to glance over and I see grass. 10 feet down, there's grass. In the standing timber, there's grass. And at that time, I was kind of like, what? There's no grass on this lake. It's a standing timber lake. There's a little bit of grass at the ramps, but I don't see any grass anywhere else. So I'm thinking, all right, what is going on? So, re-rig. This is the time you have to re-rig too. So bait selection. Don't be afraid to sit down for 15 minutes and re-rig your 8 rods or your 4 rods. For the most part, don't do more than 4. But re-rig your rods so your confidence goes back up. Because by the time you're re-rigging, the 8 rods you just pre-rigged and brought from the house, they're not working. They're gonna be they're out the window. So if you continue on that path, you're not gonna catch them. So you have to re-rig. Spend 15 minutes. This is where I think I've never timed myself, but probably should time yourself on how fast you can re-rig something. So basically, this tournament, we showed up late, like we usually do. We show up late. We show up like 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. I launched 15 minutes after the official start time. So by the time I got on the water, I was the last guy on to get on the water, and I already knew all the good spots were already been taken. Right, so I just go out slow. I start off on a random point with a frog, and then kind of work my way back to this is T in the creek, and there's like 5 guys over here, and there's nobody on this side, which means probably the bad creek. So I go up in this creek, and there's bass chasing bait. I can't figure out how to catch them, right? So I back out, and that's when I try to fish deeper profiles. Broke off a big fish. I don't know what it was. And then I drift over the spot. This is grass. I had nothing there. Like, I had nothing tied up for grass, okay? I feel like I wasn't even properly prepared for grass. So what did I do? I took my drop shot rod, cut it off. I only had 6-pound line on it because it's a drop shot rod, and I'm fishing standing timber with my drop shot rod. It's a 6-pound test, right? So what did I do? Okay, so at that moment I've been playing with small finesse baits, small finesse swim baits for a while. This is probably my third or fourth trip with a swim bait deal. And of course, before this was all just messing around in creeks and ponds and a couple white bass trips, right? So I go out there and I happen to pack 3 packs of this is the Kitech 2.8s, right? With I think it's little ball head jigs. So I go out and I'm thinking rattle trap, right? As soon as I find that, I'm thinking rattle traps, jerk baits. So I'm throwing that and I catch crappie. Big crappie. Like crappie that'll hit a jerk bait. It's pretty good sized crappie. And then I catch a small bass, like a 12-inch bass. And then that bite kind of just died away, And plus, on top of that, the wind was blowing pretty good. It was blowing like 15. So I can't stay in my position in a kayak long enough to jerk the jerk bait, So I scrapped all that. I threw a rattle trap. I got bit twice on a rattle trap doing the whole grass ripping thing and no hookup. So I'm like, what is going on? They're just ramming it. So, all right, what else I got? So now I'm going down like the list of what I'm confident with, and it basically gets down to you got swim baits. That's it. And at the time, my brother's pretty good with swim bait, but he's always telling me how good the bite is. But honestly, I've never even caught a bass on a swim bait. So, tie the swim bait off, first cast. I'm rolling through. I hit some grass. I kind of just jiggle it a little bit, and it pulls me down. So I set the hook. It's like a 14. I'm like, all right, we're doing good. So I keep firing back out there, and I catch a limit fast. I'm thinking the next 2 hours I catch a limit, right? So this is already like an hour and a half in. I haven't even gotten a bite. In the next 2 hours, I catch a limit. And the way it was shaping out, I was talking to a lot of guys because I'm on a main lake point, so everybody's kind of passing by me, and everyone's kind of asking, pretty curious, how's everybody doing? So I'm like, I got a limit. It's a small limit, but I got a limit, and everyone's kind of like, well, I only got one, or I got two. I heard somebody who's got three. I think Mike, it's got five, and then I'm over here like, well, I got five. They're not big. They're all like, my biggest one is like a 14. So start chucking, swim baits. And then I realized I forgot. I had a, I think I forgot that I missed. I forgot some tackle. I forgot like something. So I had to actually paddle back to the car, get it, come back. While I was at the car, I was fishing around this little island, and I caught a 16-inch bass that had gotten me. Once again, like I said, this is a 6 pound line. So I cast my little swim jig out there, swim bait out there. It catches me, and it wraps me in grass, and I'm fighting this fish for, like, no joke. I fought this fish for 15 minutes. My 6 pound line could not break the coontail grass that the fish was wrapped in. So for a long time, I thought that fish had already broken off. So I get to where the fish is at. It's too deep. It's like 7 foot down. I can't reach it with my rod. I can't. I can pull a line up. I'll probably just break it. So I could every once in a while I can still feel it kind of tugging. So I have a little bit of hope, but for the most part, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing, bro? 6 pound line, fishing grass, at American Horse, which is known for big bass too. It's like it's not gonna work out. It's not gonna work out. And then it turns out I actually got that fish. After a while, the fish just kind of floated to the top, and I netted it. I was so happy. It was like a 16 and a half. That was the biggest fish of the day for me. So then I go back, and I figure out they're in grass, they're in deep grass, and then they're by the swim bait. And my brother hadn't caught a limit yet, so I gave him my actual setup. I was like, just go to that point over there. And there's a tree underwater. You might not even see it, but there's a bunch of grass, and I just start chucking them in. So he goes over there, and an hour later, he catches the limit. But they're all little small fish, like I said. It was a hard day. But I hope you guys saw the bait transition right there. The bait, the lure selection, the transition of how I went from a frog to, well, I was throwing a swim jig too. Frog to swim jig to a big 10-inch worm to a rattle trap to a jerk bait. And then it finally went down to a small swim bait. And then after that, I did kind of try to rotate the other baits back in there, but they just didn't want it as good. So, like I said, that day, they must have been chasing like minnows or something, because that's the only thing I get bit on. Where every time if they bit it, they had it real good. Where I was also throwing like a quarter-ounce red eye shad. Well, they would like hit it real hard, but they wouldn't bite it. It's almost like they would just ram it. And sometimes you'll get them hooked for a couple of seconds and then come right off. So as you develop, you start predicting things. You start projecting things. If a fish is hitting your lure and not hooking up properly, you can start seeing that. And sometimes, if you get lucky enough, you might actually hook a fish in the head or on the back as you're reeling them in, and they jump and it comes off. You need to start, noticing all those little fine details, which will tell you to, either change baits or reel it faster or reel it slower. One of those two things. Yeah, John. The hybrids, the hybrids, and the stripers, from what I can tell, if you're talking about like microscopic worms, it's been around for a long time. Okay, it might be the first time you noticed it, but the stripers at Keystone, they have like a herpes kind of problem, and I know I say that, but it's weird. I actually don't eat fish from Keystone Dam anymore. The fish from OOW, they do have worms. I think every fish has worms. You just have to, cook them properly. Don't do anything stupid. Don't eat any fish raw, and you'll be all right. So, so that's bass fishing, right? Kayak preparation is one of the other things too. Like I said, you have to kind of know your kayak. You kind of know yourself, so that when you go out, you're not you're not you're not overreaching. You want to be comfortable doing the things you're doing, because you don't want to feel like, if I have to cross 200 yards of open water and the wind's blowing 15 and the waves are crazy. Like, if you've never done that before, it can be very daunting. and and you might not even make it to the other side. Where as another guy who has always fished, say, the ocean, he comes out, he goes, "Oh, that's nothing. Let's cross that like 4 times a day. It's no problems, right?" So just keep that in mind. You follow those 5 steps, man. Like I said, you will come to a conclusion where your your baits are definitely gonna be different from mine. The areas that you fish are gonna be different from mine. But at the same time, that process will allow you to build confidence as your day goes. You're building more confidence. You're building more confidence, especially when you go out, right? I'll give you an example. The latest win I got, the latest win, and I think Josh Manson uh, could chime in on this, was Josh has been kind of talking with us in and out, and he uh he fishes his lake, right? Dripping Springs. He fishes it a lot. He wins a lot of money out of it on the online tournaments and stuff like that. But we had a 1 day event. It was the Oklahoma City uh, Jackpots. They hosted their I think it's the Oklahoma City Kayak Club. That's what it was. They hosted their state. Yeah, you kind of say that their championship on Dripping Springs. Now I haven't been on Dripping Springs since the spring, and it was hosted in, I think it was September something, late September. So I made my list. Made my list of things I would like to fish. Right. So I made my list. I'll tell you exactly what I rigged up. I had 8 rods. I remember I had 8 rods. Right. But don't get me wrong, I do have some history on the lake, and I do have some idea going in what the lake has to offer. Right, so I know the lake has some big fish in there, but those fish can shut off. Like I don't know what the deal is with that lake. It could be 1 day it's just like they're handing out 20s, like they're handing out 5, 6 pounders. Like you want a 5 pounder, here you go. You want a 6 pounder, here you go. You want an 8 pounder, here you go. And there's other lakes, there's other days where it's like, man, ain't nobody get nothing over 2 pounds. Like it's one of those lakes. It's a Florida stream lake. So me going in, I kind of look at the weather. So I have my list, right? Show you my list. My list is a full size brush hog, right? Half ounce, tungsten weight on it, Texas rig, must have 4-aught worm hook. Okay, that was a brush hog. I have a 10-inch worm rig though. Same weight, same hook, same rod, same reel too. 2 duplicates. Okay, so those are my powers, right? If if I could get bid on those two, it's game over. Like I felt like if I could get those two going, it was game over because those two lures they typically will get you above average quality, right? Because it's a big bait. Okay, had that had a top water tied on a Rebel T10. It's a favorite of the channel. It's been around for a long time. That's a top one. And then I tied on a square bill, right? Striking 1.0, right? Not the 1.5, the 1.0. Over the summer, we've been growing to love this little square bill. It's awesome. So had one already tied on from a previous trip, and basically just retied the knot at the boat ramp before we went fishing, right? So I had that tied on. If you go to Dripping Springs, you better have a flipping setup. Just do it. I don't like to flip, but I've been beaten by it too many times on drip, so I have one of those flip like set up. So once again, 3/8 flipping weight, Strike King creature bait, whatever it was, 4/0 VMC straight shake. Okay, so those four are, if it bites this, it's good. And then I had a Magnum Nico rig, which I always throw on Dripping Springs at the dam. I don't know what it is, but they love it. The dam, they love that Magnum Nico rig. So that's tied up. And the other ones I forgot. I forgot what I packed. So because those were just kind of like the filler rods. So I go out, show up late because my brother was doing stupid stuff, I guess. I wasn't stupid. He had to take his wife to the airport. And then we were running late because of that. Right? So we get there, everybody's basically launched. We squeeze right in, right? Pay the tournament director. Everybody takes off. We're offloading our kayaks to the water. Take off. I come around the bank. I usually want to start on the main lake point right next to them. As I launch, there's already like 3 kayaks on there, and there's like 3 kayaks in the back, and there's like a sea of kayaks everywhere else. So I'm thinking, all right, I can't get there, so I guess I'll start the dam. So I swing around this point, and I'm looking at the dam, and there's nobody there. There's a guy on the far end, there's another guy on the other far end, and I'm thinking, I guess I'll start in the middle. And the dam's like 200 yards long, so I'll start in the middle. So as I start to even approach the middle, I see some topwater action, right? So I'm like, all right, it's probably just white bass. It's probably just white bass, right? Because I've caught white bass there before, so there's actually a decent population of white bass. So I go there, I'm thinking, throw my topwater or throw my square bill, right? So I'm thinking, you know what? They're not busting crazy, so square bill. So pick up the square bill, fire, nothing. Fire, second cast, fire, third cast, boom, I catch one. I'm thinking, oh, this is white. It feels like it's a white bass. I get into the kayak, I see green net that sucker. It's like a 14 and a half, something like that. So I got the first fish on board ready. Measure it, let it go. I fire again, catch a white bass, fire again. This is open water fishing. So I'm just randomly throwing a square bill out there and just burning it, and I get 2 white bass. So I'm like, I'm done. It's time to go. All right. Finally get to the dam, and I start working the dam. And what do you know? I see just a little bit of movement somewhere. And this is where the fine details comes into. Your eyes have to be very, very trained for movement or trained for differences in the terrain. So I get to this one area. I see just a little bit of like shad flicker. I don't know. I didn't even know what it was. A fire out there. And this is all video too, guys. You guys don't watch it. So I fire out there. I crank it out. Maybe like 3-4 cranks. Like I pause it, and then I start cranking again, and the lure has already been eaten. So it hit me on the pause. So I lean on it. I'm like, oh man, this is too big. Like this is too big. This is like a catfish, like a big flying catfish. Because I've caught them there too. Okay. So I'm really just thinking this digging, right? You know, bass usually don't dig. They usually like to travel sideways or they come up and they jump, right? So I'm just like, this is on a 10-pound line too. I'm just like, okay. I get to the boat and bam, it's a big bass. I'm just like, oh, hold on. So I'm fighting this thing real good. I put him in the boat. It's 21-inch roughly. So I'm just like, damn, that wasn't expected, but I'll take it. And I haven't even got to my plan yet. That's the crazy part, right? My plan was to fish offshore brush piles with a brush hog with a big worm. But you all know that, I'll say here first, timing has a lot to do with it too. So the brush pile bite is not good until 9:30. So I'm just wasting time until 9:30. You don't want to roll up in the brush pile yet, but the fish ain't in there yet. So you gotta time it out. So I roll up to the dam. I crank down the dam. I catch like a little spotted bass. That was like, I wish I would have caught that too because I could have won the small bass award. It was like a freaking 3-inch bass, right? That hit my little 1.0 square bill. I tried to boat flip it, but then it fell off. Anyways, I didn't win the small bass. So I went all the way down the dam, and then there's I just call them hot dogs. Daddy Bowling always tries to tell me what they are. I always forget. But I just call them hot dogs. The reeds, right? This lake is so thick with this stuff. So I'm over there. And don't get me wrong. There was 2 kayakers over there, and they had left. But it took me about an hour to get there, right? So it's roughly like 8:30. I still got to burn an hour before I go to brush piles. So I get there. I'm like, you know what? I'm already here. I might as well flip this because this is a good area, right? I always catch at least 1 or 2 small fish, like 12, 13 inches here. So I get up there. I flip. I get bit 13. Flip. One takes off. I set the hook. I didn't get him. I don't know what happened. So I'm flipping down, and I'm like, you know what? I need to go back and check on that one. So I come back and I catch him like a 13 something. So I'm pretty stoked. I got 4 fish now, and it's not even like 9:30 yet. Like in my mind, I didn't even got to do the good stuff yet. It's already looking pretty good, right? You got a 14, a 14, a 20, and like a 13. All you gotta do is catch a couple 18s. You pretty sure you got this, right? So all right, so I start flipping. There's a bunch of boats flipping with me, so everybody's flipping, right? Everybody's flipping. But now, see, the other thing about me too is I don't like to make mistakes, so I like to watch people make mistakes for me. Right? Hear me out. I don't like to make mistakes, but I like to have people make mistakes for me. So what that means is you watch people fish. You pay attention to what they're doing. I mean, you can bring binoculars out there if you want to. There's no rules against it, right? So I'm watching this boat flip. He's flipping all these reeds, right? But I noticed he's flipping the reeds that are real shallow. Reeds that are in 2 foot of water or less. Now I was catching fish in 3 foot, 4 foot of water, right? It's a big difference when you're flipping stuff like that. So he's flipping, I'm flipping my stuff. I'm not getting bit, but you don't have to watch your bait go into the water while you're watching somebody. So I'm flipping, I'm watching, flipping, watching, flipping, and watching. He doesn't catch anything. He takes off. It's a boat. It takes off. I don't catch anything. So I'm thinking, all right. At one moment in time, I remember there's a creek channel that swings through here, and there's like 2 laydowns down there. Let me go see the laydowns are still there. So I have decent electronics. This is where the electronics comes in. So I go through, I scan it real quick. I have old waypoints too, by the way, but you got to make sure the brush is still there. So I go right over it. It lights up. There's like 4 or 5 decent, like whatever they are, hovering above the brush pile. So I actually go past it, power pole down. The power pole actually goes to the other side of the creek. It just hangs up, and the wind's blowing towards my back. So I throw out there, and the first pass through it, I get hung up. That's not good. So I do U-turn and go back and pull the hook the other way, and go back to the other side of the creek. So basically, there's this creek, and the creek kind of goes up like that, and I have power poles. But I'm just power poling on the opposite sides of the creek. It's underwater. So I give that bomb back over the creek to the flat, and then it falls in the creek. First drag coming through, I hit the first, you can say the first major tree branch that was down there, and something pulls me down. And I set the hook hard, and it comes up jumping, and it's a big one. And I'm just like, oh, come on, come on, come on. And it's on a brush hog too. So it's like, things are going according to plan. I net that guy, measured 18 and a half. It looked like a 20, but it's one of those stubby fishes, So 18 and a half. So I'm like, all right, 18 and a half. We're looking real good, right? We're looking real good. All right, so you took an 18. Well, before that, I was flipping. I did actually catch a 15 flipping too. And I missed a big one flipping. So I already caught a limit. So this 18 calls out like a 13. So at the moment, this is like 9:30, 9:45, right? Around that time. So you got a 20. It's a high 20. It's almost a 20. You got an 18 and a half. Yeah, 15, 14, and 13 is what it looks like. Can't remember the exact, but it's kind of in that kind of range. So I'm thinking, all right, that's not bad. But if I could catch another, like I felt like I was in the top 5 with that stringer right there and then. And we were fishing till I think it was 1 o'clock, right? So we still got like 3 hours, right? So I'm thinking, all right, if I could catch another 20-incher, I think I got it. Like enough confidence to say, I think I got it. I think I got it. Right? But at this point, I'm like, I'm in the top 5. I don't got it yet. Right? So I fish hard. I catch another 14. I catch another one. I catch another one. I keep hanging up on this brush pile. So I actually move. I completely move out of that area to try other brush piles around the lake. As I'm going around, I catch a whole bunch of little fish, and then I come back. This is just wasted. A lot of times in the world of tournament fishing, you have to let a spot rest. So for me, I was going to hit that spot, and I was going to fish the dam on the way back. So the last 2 hours, hour and a half, the last hour and a half, you can say, I was going to fish, do something, come back to that brush pile that put out the 18, and then go fish the dam the last 30 minutes, just in case. Right, so that was the plan. So I started doing stupid stuff, scanning for new brush piles. You shouldn't be scanning for new brush piles during the tournament. You should be doing that way before, right? So I was just kind of messing around. I figured my brother had already fished all those brush piles because those are all his favorite brush piles. So I figured I'd go out. I'd fish his brush piles 2 hours after he'd already fished them. So I go out, I catch a whole bunch of tanagers. They don't even help. I come back to the brush pile that I caught the 18. Nobody home. Nobody home. Right? So I'm like, all right, I gotta catch something better than just not going. I don't want to go at damages yet. So I just take my 10-inch work, right? 10-inch work that we had already rigged, and I just start fan casting it. Why? I don't even know. I just started fan casting it because it felt right. It just felt right. So I just bombed it like every 20 foot. I was power pole down, so I was just bombing it like that. Look, that feels all right as far as you can go. That feels right as far as you can go. Yeah, nose is a little stuffy. It's just the house. The house is a little stuffy right now. So I catch another 15 and a half, which later on I find out seals the deal. So uh, we ended up winning that tournament, because we had a good game plan going in. We had the rods rigged up the way I felt like the tournament should have been won, and it was won that way, the way I thought. I follow the seasonal patterns because brush pile fishing is June, summer, early fall, right? Mid fall. So you kind of knew seasonal patterns. And also there was a schooling fish bite, which it only happens in the fall. So that's why that little 1.0 square bill was there, right? So there was almost like two different patterns going at the same time. And the weather conditions, bluebird days, little bit of wind, maybe 15. At one point got to 15. For the most part, it was like 5 to 10. Bluebird days, you're fishing for Florida strain bass. You need to be prepared for that. You need to fish slow. You need to fish close to objects. Whether it's brush piles deep or they'll be on the bank, they're going to be on that stuff. So that's what I prepared, and that's what I did. And I knew that early morning brush pile bite the early morning schooling bite was only going to be there for the first hour max. And that's what I did. So I caught two schooling fish, and then immediately went to flipping. Caught three, four possibly, can't remember. And then 9:30 hits, and I'm fishing brush piles. Brush piles is what I like to do: big line, big rod, 20-pound fluorocarbon. Like I said, half-ounce bullet weight, and your choice of big plastic behind it. So we did pretty good with that. Ended up winning that tournament, and yeah, power, start power, and go finesse, or pick finesse, go power. One of the two. All right. Yep, won that tournament, and that tournament basically funded the entry and bought hotel rooms, bought food for the state championship. So we ended up winning that. Did pretty good in the state championship too. Uh, Almost won. I feel like I almost won that one, even though I came in fourth place. I feel like I almost won that tournament. Yeah, it's a little stuffy. I don't have anything in it. It's just like clogged up. Uh, but yeah, pretty good. Let me know if you guys have any questions. That's pretty much it. That's the top five. So we'll hang out for like another maybe 15 minutes, and then we'll have to call it quits because for the guys that didn't know, I started at 7:30. Had some technical difficulties, and then I had to restart the whole thing. So uh, yeah, so that's why we're here talking about bass fishing. So kayaks, tournaments, how I break down a lake, and it goes like that for every lake I go to. So it doesn't matter if it's super clear lake. I still start my list and I break it down into which ones should work on clear lake, windy, cloudy, post spawn, pre spawn, just just what it is. So yeah, now it's kind of like Q&A, so you don't have to ask bass specific questions. But uh, somebody asked, What's your favorite lure for bass? So, okay, so this is Mr. B. You don't have a favorite lure for bass. That's my best advice for you. Do not fall for that trap. You could have a most productive lure, but don't have a favorite lure, okay? Because that's what everybody starts off with. But as you get better and better and better, your lures become tools for that specific day. That's it. You need to be confident with a drop shot as much as you're confident with a hollow belly froth. Like it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Any advice for pre-fishing a 2 day derby? A 2 day derby? Okay, so 2 day derbies are it's a totally different animal than fishing a 1 day derby. The major difference is in a 2 day derby, you need to gauge how many inches is good enough for day one, just to stay in contention. And you might have to leave fish. That's the gamble you have to take. Because I felt that at the championship on day one, I felt that I left a lot of fish behind. I felt like I did because I felt like if you caught about 80, going in, I was being was talking about this. It's a 3 hour drive up there, right? So we're talking about this, and we say if anybody can get 80 on both days, is probably gonna be in contention to win, right? 80 both days. So I think I caught like 76, and I was in fourth place or something like that, right? Can't remember exact, but it was pretty good. Like I felt like a lot of the guys that practiced a couple of days ahead, they possibly could have fallen into that tunnel vision thing where as the climate changes, the temperature changes, the weather pattern changes, the fish will not bite the same lure you caught them on during practice. So when I went in Friday afternoon, I wasn't there to find what kind of baits they were chasing. I was just there to find out where they're at. Okay. And kind of get a gauge for like size of fish, ooh, size of fish, and how aggressive they were. So Friday was like a square bill, a jig, and a buzzbait, right? That's my search baits. And we didn't even fish all day. We didn't get on the water till probably 12 and fished till about 4:30, 5, I think. We left. So got a pretty good gauge. Like, okay, they're all main lakes or they're all the way to the back of the pockets. That's it. That's where they're gonna be at. Right? So I was like, all right, let's do that. I was like, let's do that. And then game day, day one, fished an island. I actually fished two islands. And I felt that the island was pretty good, but I left the island to go across to jump on the boat, to jump on the trailer, and trailer out to the other side of the lake, basically, right? And I felt like I left fish, so that's something you have to gauge. So sometimes on day one you have to leave fish, right? You have to. Same for Lake Fork too. When I was at Lake Fork day two, well day one going well, the second time I went to Lake Fork, that's what it was. Second time I went to Lake Fork, day one, I struggled in the pads. I only caught four fish, right? And my plan was I knew those four fish was not going to get me to where I wanted to be at, right? So I caught four fish. They were all like 15 and a half inches, right? And I had a couple spots offshore that had marked during practice. I was like, I'm going to dedicate 3 hours offshore day one, right? So I went in, I caught my four fish, and as soon as I caught my four fish, I was out. I was out. I was like I feel like I was here to get my four, and then I'll get my kicker fish offshore. Because it's freaking Lake Fork, you know? So I went offshore for 3 hours. I got two bites, and they wouldn't stay pegged. So I came in with four fish day one, and then even with just four fish, I was in ninth place. That was pretty crazy. I was blown away. I was like, what is going on? You're in ninth place with four fish at 77 inches. That's ridiculous. So all right. So the Next day, I said I'm not moving away from the pads until I catch a limit, right? Because I can't do that again. Four fish coming in, it's not good. So go ahead, day two. I fished hard. I fished as best as I could. It wasn't until like 12:30 I caught a limit. And from there on out, I still said, look, I need to go offshore, catch that 24 or something, because these 15s, it's not going to take you anywhere. So day two, once again, offshore for the last 2 hours, still zero bites. I came in, weighed in, all that stuff, and I was in the top 10. I think I cashed a $400 check-in time, but it was just like one of those things you gotta know when to go, when to stay. And when you're practicing, it feels like you just gotta find good populations of fish and gauge it with fishing pressure too, because there's a lot of guys there, and and if you're just throwing something very basic like a square bill or a jig, those guys would have found those areas too. So trying to get to areas that are a little bit more specialized. I feel like more specialized areas with specialized baits, people are less likely to find, and they're more likely to deliver both days, if that helps. Mark, what is the most bass you've ever caught from your kayak, and what were you using? That was, I can't tell you the lake because people will kill me, but chatterbait. There was a moment in time where the sun, the moon, everything else aligned, and it was a chatterbait bite. I caught 30 bass within an hour and a half on a chatterbait. Every size too, everything from 12 inches all the way up to 21 and a half inches. But it was casting the same spot too. It was basically there's a line of stumps, kind of like that, because it's an old highway, old street. There's two stump lines, and there's some grass through the stumps. It's all underwater. You can't see it. But I was just making that cast. Like it was like a 30-yard cast. Then I'm just burning it through the grass. Every time I stopped it, got hit. What got you into? What got you to start a YouTube channel? Okay, so when we started, YouTube was you didn't get paid to do YouTube. So I'm an old school guy now. So I do the channel whether I get paid or not. Right. Eventually, I want to be full time YouTube. So hopefully these videos will kind of help people out, right? But basically, we saw a bunch of people fishing, and we're like, yeah, that's what I want to watch. That's what I want to watch in the future. I'm tired of Bill Dance all the time. On just Saturday mornings, I guess. I want to watch fishing all the time, right? So that's what we did. We started a YouTube channel, and there was a lot of people behind us that were influenced by us, and people influenced by them, and so on and so forth. To the point where now it's impossible to watch all the YouTube videos about fishing. I feel like at the time when we first started, you could after about 2 months you could watch all the fishing videos, or you have watched all the fishing videos. All right. But yeah, that's gonna close it up here in about 5 minutes. So any last questions? Give them in. All right. What is your favorite drug to fish on? I don't do drugs, so say it's Coca Cola. Coca Cola is pretty good. Some of the guys on tour do other things. I'm not supposed to say because we have a police officer that fishes with us. Yeah, best believe it. So you're not supposed to do any of that stuff. Besides, it's kind of like this too. If you're a competitive fisherman, unless if the drug enhances your mind, like causes it to focus better, it's not gonna actually do anything. Nope. Don't do any of that stuff. Never have. But yeah. Kayak fishing is one of those things where I think once you really get into it, it's actually it's pretty fun to do. Me and my brother, like we said, we actually prefer kayak fishing over the boat. Uh, the boat is fun, but at the same time, you're not covering as much water. So with a kayak, one guy goes one way, the other guy goes the other way, and you walkie talkie back, and you share information. It's it's very interesting how that works. And if you forget something, you call them, stuff like that. They help you out. Or if you catch something, you tell the other guy, hey, you better be throwing chatterbait or something like that. Yeah, the whole drug thing. I feel like if you have to use it, you're not that good. Put it that way. You could be a lot better. And on top of that, like if you get to the tournament world, like especially the kayak world, if, if you're gonna cross open water and it's actually a race to some of these spots sometimes too, you gotta have to be somewhat fit, or at least your stamina has to be pretty high. Yeah, and plus like I've never really done the drug stuff too much, but I feel like it's never gonna be as good as the drug hit you get from the bass. Or put it this way, like when you prepared so much for a tournament and the tournament is not going the way you want it to go, and you re-rig everything all the water, and then it starts coming to you. The tournament starts coming to you, and you figure things out. The pieces come to you, right? And you get that feeling that you're in contention to win, right? At 1 o'clock. And you're just like, if I get another big bite by two, we're gonna win this thing. And at 157, that fish bites. I don't think there's a higher drug than that, bro. That's the highest drug you're gonna get. That's the highest drug you're gonna get. Because you're so happy you actually tear up a little bit. Put it that way. Not often do full grown men cry over happiness. Okay. And that's happened to me twice. It's crazy. And sometimes you don't even win those tournaments, but you're so dialed, you forget, you lose track of time, you don't get hungry, you forget to drink. Before you know it, you're cramping them real hard, and then you're so focused, fish bites, you land it, or you lose it. But say you land it, and you're just like, I worked so hard for this. Like it's so hard to get to this level. Yep. How much do you rely on your electronics when you go fishing? I think it depends. The electronics is like another lure in a sense. Okay, so you use it to find fish too. When I first started, I felt like the electronics is really important, but the past 2 years, not so much. Not so much. Maybe it's because I've gone over that hump of like really loving the electronics to the point where I feel like I could do pretty good with no electronics. Okay, I'll give you some examples. This past year, I fished the kayak jackpots, right? The Tuesday nights. I fished, I think, 15 events. And every single one of the events that I won, I had the fish finder on it, but it was turned off. Okay. I think I won three. I came in second 5 times. Of those 5 times, I think the electronics came in handy 1 time. So if you think about the 8 events that I did very well in, 7 of those events worthless $1,000 piece of equipment. You don't need it. Okay, when you know what you're doing, you can read the environment very well. and you feel comfortable making decisions, you don't actually need a fish finder. It's good to have. Don't get me wrong. The championship, the 18, the 16, and maybe the 15 came because of the electronics. The first two that I caught during the morning, the first 30 minutes, that was all eyeballs. Okay, I saw the fish jumping. I had uh, the idea to go over there and throw a square bill in 30 foot of water, caught those two. Okay, that was a gut feeling. That had nothing to do with electronics. But at the same time, electronics helps you better visualize what's underneath. Okay. uh, yeah. Advice on what to watch for while on the water. Okay, so for the most part, your eyes. I feel like your eyes don't. Okay, so if it's a top water, then your eyes need to watch the bait, right? As you're working it, you need to watch it. But every other technique, your eyes should be scanning. That's just what it is. Because think about like a square bill or swim bait, you can't even see it anyways, right? So your eyes are scanning for changes, right? Or scanning for the next spot you need to make a cast to, or your eyes looking at your fish finder. Like your eyes need to be trained to do that too. I know it's kind of hard to say, but you have to train your eyes to do that. And when you're top water fishing, especially like on broken bow, where there's one little fish I caught that was only like a 12 foot. I was over 75 foot of water, right, all the way back to the ramp. And I see like fish chasing shad, 30 yards. It was probably 50 yards out. Uh, I immediately turned, went over there, fired the swim bait. First cast, just let it pendulum back, and he took it. Okay, so your eyes have to be like 180 all the time, looking. You're always looking for something to do. You gotta be hungry for something to do, basically, put it that way. And you'll find something to do. You'll find something. Whether it's gonna be like oh, you don't worry about your ears too. Your ears have to be trained to listen to splashing water. Splashing water is what was key. So a lot of times when you get good, based on how the water splashes on the surface, you can tell what kind of fish it was. Whether that was a carp just splashing, whether that was a bird diving, or whether that was a striper hit or a bass hit. They all sound different. They all sound different. Yeah, yeah. Fish finder on anything. There's moments for it. So if you're fishing deep water, you gotta have it, right? But if you're fishing, say less than 10 foot, for the most part, if you throw a crankbait, it could tell you exactly what's down there. That's how I did it before I had a fish finder. I won my first three, four. I won my first five tournaments without a fish finder. Put it that way. Uh, it was all on crankbaits. So if you throw a crankbait, like I said, DT10 was my first love of crankbaits. Right? You throw that thing out, it could touch 10 foot. Throw it really really far with upgraded hooks, it'll touch 13. So you're cranking it. As a crankbait, put it this way: the crankbait wobbles like very predictable wobbles, like tick 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 tick, right? And when it hits something, it's a different wobble, and you'll pick up that when it hits uh, brush piles, it wobbles different. When it hits rock, it wobbles different. Hitting little rocks, different from big rocks, different from boulders. It gives you all that feedback. And that's something that if you listen to all the YouTube, all the old guys, they'll tell you that all the new kids are always just life scope this, life scope that, or side imaging this, side imaging that. It's like it's true, but what if your electronics goes down? You have to still figure out what to do. Or if your battery goes dead, or you forget to charge your battery, things like that. As a backup plan, it's really good to get a different approach on how to accomplish the same thing. What is your thoughts on a 16-inch screen on a kayak? That's just way too big. That's just way too big. I don't think I'll ever go above a 10. I really don't think I'll go above a 10. But that's just me. It could change, but I think it gets to the point where if you look at the this started to become like an electronics show, but if you look at a lot of the wins you have, don't get me wrong. There's certain guys that they have to have it to win, right? That's cool too. But the electronics, in my opinion, I did win with it, and I have won without it. So I'm kind of, I don't depend on it anymore. The Spavinol tournament that I won in the early spring, uh, I caught 4 of those fish with a frog on the bank. You didn't need any electronics whatsoever. The last fish, which is probably the fish that was key, it was won with electronics. I'll tell you that. Not because I had the cool like side imaging or anything like that. It's actually because of GPS. There's a cool trick I can show the advanced guys how to do this, but you can go to like Google Maps. You can trace contours, transfer contours over to your fish finder, and the fish finder will display as a saved track your contours. And I think at the time I had it mapped out like 3 foot, 5 foot, and it was like a 7 foot contour off of Google Maps onto the fish finder, which is very advanced. It's a very advanced thing. Some people talk about it. Some people don't care for it. But tell you what, it helped me win that tournament. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, the kayaks had multiple screens. I could see if you had like a 360 or a live scope. I could see that. But other than that, I don't know. It's getting to the point where I don't even feel like they should even have horsepower restrictions on your kayak anymore. Because if you've got say you have a pro like we do, it's a $4,000 kayak, right? You put a Torpedo on there, I don't know, 3,000, and then you put 212s, 3,000 piece roughly. No, let's say 2,000 piece. That's 4,000. Eh, I don't know. Like at that point, it starts. It starts. It starts. I start losing it. Like I start losing the whole like reason why we kayak kind of feel. And pay attention to like I think was it the Hobie series of kayak, the kayak guys, the AOI didn't even have a fish finder, something like that. I heard something like that somewhere. Either Bass or Hobie or the other trail KBF, where the AOI didn't even have a fish finder. So that's it. You know. All right. Here's a good question. What's your favorite crankbait? All right, we'll start small or go big, right? Uh, we'll start with a 1.0, right? 1.0, I like the square, the little square bill from Strike King. It's real cheap. Then you go to the 1.5. I like the Lucky Craft 1.5. And I like the Spro Little John. Those are pretty solid right there. Lots of confidence. And then it hops up to DT10 for Rapala and the Striking 5XD. Those are kind of staples too. Once you go beyond that, then I like the Berkeley Dredgers. Something that can hit 17, 18 foot Berkeley Dredger. And the other one was the one that dives super deep. What was it? I don't throw it very often. That's why. Yeah, 6XD is in there too. I've only caught a handful of fish on 6XD. I don't throw it as much because it drags so much. Let's see. There's another one. The dual realism, the G86 or 87, 89. That was real good. Like it cast ridiculously far. I've only caught two fish on it so far, but it's been like off the proper times to throw it too. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the 5 steps to try to do good, break down a lake. But come back next week. We'll have something more advanced to talk about. Maybe we can talk square bills or something. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We had some major technical difficulties in the beginning, but I don't know what happened. The router just crapped out, so I had to go reset the router. But I'll see you guys Thursday. If you guys want to talk stripers, if you guys want to talk bass only, then come back next Tuesday. We'll talk more bass. All right, guys.